Welcome to the Animal Training Academy podcast show. I'm your host, Ryan Carledge. I know that you're here because you want to master your animal training skills using a force-free approach. And to handle the variety of challenges you face, you need a broad knowledge and experience base. The problem is, we all get stuck and hit rough patches in our training, which can leave us feeling overwhelmed and helpless. Our mission since 2015 is to empower trainers just like you. The Animal Training Academy has helped thousands of trainers globally to develop skills, gain confidence, and positively influence both animal and human learners. Here's how we can do the same for you. Sign up for our membership waitlist at www.atamember.com. Register when our doors open email arrives and start growing your training skills. Build impactful training practices benefiting you and those you train. So join the waitlist at www.atamember.com. And while waiting, enjoy this free podcast show. We want to see you avoid embarrassment, overwhelm, and burnout. Instead, we want to see you build resilience to setbacks, get more organized, and grow your training skills and knowledge. In short, we want to see you enjoy confidence in yourself as a trainer and lead a fulfilling life, positively impacting the lives of the animal and human learners you work with. We will start today's episode where I'm super excited to welcome back to the show for part 2 of our conversation, Andre Yeu. If you haven't listened to the first part, you can find it as the previous episode on whatever app you're listening to the show on. In that episode, we explored Andre's journey in getting started with positive reinforcement animal training and what led him to his current role running When Hounds Fly. It's definitely worth a listen. However, if you haven't listened to it yet, you are, of course, very welcome to stay here with part 2, where you're still going to gain plenty of insights to help you grow your skills, knowledge, and confidence in animal training. So let's dive in. Andre is a renowned figure in the dog training world, celebrated for his significant contributions as a faculty member at the prestigious Karen Pryor Academy, and is the founder of When Hounds Fly Dog Training. Transitioning from a career in technology to entrepreneurship in animal training, Andre has successfully led When Hounds Fly to become a leading institution in the field, with several locations across Toronto and Vancouver. These locations are staffed by a committed team of full-time trainers, reflecting the Academy's excellence and dedication to positive reinforcement training methods. Andre's expertise is widely recognized and sought after by various media outlets, establishing him as a prominent voice in canine behavior and training. His journey into dog training, which began with the adoption of his beagle Duke, which we talked about in length in part 1, underscores a heartwarming and inspiring shift towards a deep-seated commitment to positive reinforcement technique. Andre holds a bachelor's degree in commerce as well from the University of British Columbia. On a personal note, Andre's life is enriched by his partnership with Heidi Hashimoto. Together, they have navigated the joys and sorrows of pet companionship, mourning the loss of their beloved rescue beagle Phoebe last year. But in a heartening turn of events, though, their family has since welcomed Mikey, a one-eyed American Bulldog mix, demonstrating their ongoing commitment to rescuing and providing loving homes for animals in need. So, Andre, thank you so much for spending about 3 hours with me today and coming back to hang out with us for part 2 of our conversation. We really appreciate it.
I'm enjoying the conversation. Thank you.
Well, I'm enjoying it as well and super excited to talk about the topic for part 2. I can't wait to hear what you have to share, Andre. I know it's going to be really insightful for me in my own business, Animal Training Academy, but more importantly, I know it's going to be incredibly valuable for our audience. I'm eager to hear your perspectives as we now turn our attention to a pressing issue for many in our field, mastering the digital domain. Andre, in the wake of the pandemic, animal training businesses traditionally reliant on brick and mortar models have pivoted towards establishing a more significant online presence. The shift has necessitated a rapid upskilling in digital platforms and social media management, from TikTok and Instagram to X, formerly known as Twitter, Threads, Facebook, to name but a few. This pivot demanding regular engagement to stay relevant and connected with audiences. The learning curve's steep, and for many, keeping pace with these changes while managing the day-to-day operations of their business can be overwhelming, confusing, stressful. Putting my hand up here. As we navigate through 2024, Andre, a time when online presence is more crucial than ever, what are the 5 key strategies or actions that you think animal training business owners can adopt to overcome these digital marketing challenges, streamline their online engagement, and ensure a thriving, stress-reduced operation?
Wow, 5, huh? Well, you know what? I love the question because it's going to give me a chance to actually synthesize a lot of the things that I've been studying and working on in the last 3 years. Up until the pandemic, the amount of marketing When Hounds Fly did was relatively small. We didn't do a ton or invest a lot of time in social media. We didn't have much of an advertising budget. Our business was largely growing and thriving based on referrals from people in our community and also good search engine optimization so that we would rank highly when people were searching for puppy classes or dog training classes in Toronto. But with the pandemic and also the world moving towards being on smartphones versus search engines, or actually, let me rephrase that: using social media as a search engine, not Google, I've been forced to upskill significantly. Looking at things from a principles first perspective, though, you said that you feel, and many people, including myself, feel overwhelmed by the fact that, wow, this is in itself a full-time job. Like, to actually run an effective and thriving marketing department in an organization, if you're one person, that's a lot. It's not something you do for 10 minutes or 5 minutes here and there. Depending on how deep you go, it's a big thing. So principles first dictate when you don't have the bandwidth, time, or skill to do it, you got to get help. And I think that that's the first thing that I would recommend to people that are struggling right now. A mistake that I made early on in entrepreneurship was to actually brag about the fact that I was a bit of a jack of all trades that could do everything. In fact, there was an article that clickertraining.com wrote about me when they interviewed me about as a successful graduate of the program and with a thriving business. In the article, I bragged about how I could fix a toilet and also teach a class and also update a website. Like, I'm a jack of all trades. And for sure, in the early days when you're starting, not having to hire a plumber or pay someone to update your website saves you operating expenses. But I think that that's a very step over dimes to pick up pennies mentality towards investing in your business. So I encourage people, like, if you're busy as a trainer and you don't have time to do marketing because you're too busy seeing clients, you are much wiser seeing 2 more clients and taking those revenues and investing in hiring someone to help you. So the question boils down to, who do you hire and who do you hire? And how do you even search? How do you even find them? Or how do you even what do you even ask for? How do you build a job description? Going back to principles first, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you should do it. So our business is a large business when it comes to pet dog training, but we have a relatively small number of social media followers. Our Instagram is about to hit 6,000 followers. And I know many pet dog owner accounts that have more followers than us. And while we do invest in Instagram, we're not stressed about the fact that we don't have 10K followers or 50K followers or 100K followers. And in fact, not to disparage people that do have 50K followers, there are many social media gurus who will say, you might have 100K followers, but you have difficulty rubbing 2 pennies together. Like, high amounts of followers don't necessarily translate into the monetization of those followers into any meaningful revenue. So you really need to think and look and decide, all right, what is my business and who am I targeting? That's sort of the first question to ask. And I've had arguments with some of our millennial and Gen Z employees about this, but I And I listen to them, but I still believe it to be true. As when Hounds Fly is a brick and mortar business, which it is primarily, I don't need 100,000 followers where 98% of them are not within a 10-kilometer radius of our facilities, because our business couldn't monetize them. They can't come to our facilities. So investing in a strategy of building massive followers on our social media is not a good use of our marketing spend. That's the truth. Although if you conversely, if you are primarily an online provider, so for example, separation anxiety these days is primarily, consulting services are primarily delivered online. You could be anywhere. And even if you are in the same city, the services are typically provided online, asynchronous. You would be very wise to invest all your energy and time in social media marketing on the platform you decide, because that could produce very good return on investment. So know who your audience is, know where they are, and that dictates where you spend and invest your energy into social media, or sorry, whether you decide to focus on social media or whether you focus on search engine optimization, which is typically is for local results when people are looking for puppy classes near me, or another strategy altogether. I'll give one more strategy, and then maybe you can choose where you want me to sort of go next. I think the third thing is the medium for marketing is new. TikTok, X, Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. But human psychology and our physiology hasn't changed that much. So the principles of good marketing are largely timeless because it's based on our physiology and what attracts us. So learning things like excellent copywriting is a huge skill. And if you look at some of the online marketing guru courses that are out there that you can buy and get access to and read their content, they'll have entire sections about copywriting. And the experts they actually cite are copywriters that wrote ads in magazines and newspapers in the 50s and 60s. Like, those people really refined the craft of good copywriting. So knowing good copywriting, knowing basic advertising that's been around for over 100 years, knowing what works based on our largely unchanged physiology is actually more important than knowing how to edit a really good video for TikTok. And in fact, some of the best performing marketing we've done often have completely unedited, very raw content that was shot with a phone kind of haphazardly, but leverages those aspects of human psychology that are largely unchanged in the last, that are unchanged period ever since we've been a species.
Do you know, can you share, do you know, like, do you feel knowledgeable enough and confident enough to share what some of those are?
Oh, I definitely do. And like I said, it'll give me a chance to synthesize some of my learnings. So, and I'll even give the book too, like, so that your listeners, if they want to nerd out about this, can like read the book. There's an excellent book called Influence by Robert Cialdini, Cialdii. Influence is the book. And it's cited as like a must read for marketers. But here are some like basic things that I remember from the book. We are basically hunter-gatherers, like that's our biology and our evolution. So imagine being on a barren beige field and you're looking for things to eat and you see a bright red dot on the horizon. It's berries, carbohydrates, sugars. We're wired to look for bright things in beige backgrounds. So if you look at well-performing marketing content, bright colors popping out on boring backgrounds engage the eye, just like our ancestors looking for berries in the woods would have seen red or blue. So now think back to some of the marketing that you find appealing. Oftentimes you'll see the wardrobe choice is very deliberate. The human in the video will be wearing a very bright colored top, or they'll often have very flamboyant colored hair. Dogs that have a certain color in them, or their collar is a certain color. This is not by accident, or if it is by accident, they didn't know what they're doing, but that's why it's successful. So the visual layout appeals to the hunter-gatherer in us, that keeps us looking like, oh, what is this? Did I find the berries? The second thing too is, I mean, everyone knows this because of the toilet paper situation during COVID, but We are hardwired to lose our minds over scarcity. And now that I've told you this, you're going to look at all the marketing that you are subject to, and you will see there's an element of scarcity to it. There's only a few left. It's time limit offer, 2 spots remaining. Only 10 spots will be made available. This price is available until midnight, et cetera, et cetera. Which is also why I think nightclubs intentionally create lineups outside, because that's sort of like the third point. Social proof is pretty important. And I feel I do this to myself too. Like Heidi and I were looking for a Tibetan restaurant to eat at recently, a few months ago, and there's a neighborhood. We're actually very close to Little Tibet in Toronto. So we just walked down to where there's literally a dozen Tibetan restaurants to choose from. And they're all indistinguishable for the most part. Their branding is kind of just average. They're modest restaurants. And even though I know this stuff, like when I saw lots of people inside, it automatically made me feel safer that this would probably be a good restaurant. And when I saw restaurants that were absolutely empty, it made me automatically think there must be something wrong with this restaurant. Even though with my smartphone, I could just check the Google reviews and like verify. So people tend to do what other people are doing. So social validation is important, which is why you'll see testimonials on websites. And people will look at the number of Google reviews you have. Those are really important. If I can give a fourth, this comes from the influence book as well. It's that people like to be consistent. And there were some studies he cited where I forget the exact studies, but if you say you are, if you say you're an honest person, for example, and you're forced to actually verbalize that, and that's part of your identity, if you find yourself in a situation where you have to be honest, but you've previously stated that you are an honest person, even at great potential cost to you, you don't want to be incongruous with what you previously believed or stated you are. So you'll continue doing the same thing. So where that appears in marketing is, and this is a tactic, but it goes back to psychology. If you fill out a form to request information, for example, and let's say this would be like a lead magnet rather. The lead magnet may say like top 10 tips for top 10 tips for responsible new puppy owners. So you fill in the form to get this offer for an ebook on top 10 tips of responsible pet owners. If you send them an email later and the very top of it say, as a responsible pet owner, you should be you are already enrolling your dog in puppy socialization classes, because they previously basically said they're responsible because they opted into this form for this document for responsible pet owners. When you bring it up again later, they don't want to say, no, I'm not responsible. I lied. That actually increases the likelihood of them then proceeding to sign up for puppy classes, because you said you were responsible. Responsible owners sign up for puppy classes. Aren't you responsible? Yes, I am. I'll sign up. So those are some tidbits from that influence book. And I think that if you're in entrepreneurship, even if you don't execute the marketing, knowing these things are really important. And these sorts of principles of marketing are timeless. And even if your Canva graphic isn't as good as so-and-so's and your video is shot on a not as good phone, so it's a little bit fuzzy, that is less important than your copy and leveraging some of these things I've talked about.
So it's the question in a topic that you and I decided to talk about today was, in 2024, how do we stay relevant? And we're talking about there's these ageless principles that, regardless of it being 2024 or 2019, remember that time, or 50 years ago, there's these concepts that have the same impact on your perception of an event and slash or a product and slash or yourself that can cause or cue certain behaviors. Now, it's interesting for me to have this conversation on this podcast in 2024 for our listeners who, when you say lead magnet, I find myself thinking, do we need to define what a lead magnet is for our audience? And then I'm like, no, question. It's 2024. Our audience know what a lead magnet is. When I started the podcast in 2016, I think people would have been like, what is digital marketing? Like, what are you talking about? So I appreciate that. I think sped up by the pandemic, our understanding of these terms and how these principles work. And I guess one thing I'm curious to get your thoughts on is the ickiness that people sometimes feel when they think about these ideas and concepts, the potential manipulation that they think they might be doing if they leverage them, or they feel unpleasant if they identify in someone else's marketing because maybe they think they're not being authentic, or they feel they don't want to be, or sorry, not don't want to be, they feel that maybe they're not being authentic if they're having to say use these things to make people feel like they're not responsible, and kind of leveraging that. So for and to help get what I'm trying to say across, I'll use an example from yesterday, real life example. I had to book a meeting with someone, and if you're listening, person, you know who you are, and I love you, and you know that. And I said, oh, can we book next week? And it's kind of like we found a time, and they sent me a message saying, what exactly do you need me to prepare? And I was like, that's a really helpful question, because one, it makes me think about the meeting and exactly what the best use of our time is. But two, like, I feel really anxious right now because I don't know what exactly I need you to prepare. I haven't thought in that depth about it. It's been more of a casual, we need to talk about some things. We both know it. Let's book a time. And so I know that when you're using these marketing strategies, these ageless principles, you are thinking about your business marketing and running your business as a business, values and ethics of dog training and everything we do aside, just the business structure. And you're also potentially making people feel uncomfortable because they're like, I don't really know if I want to book this dog class, but I am a responsible person. So, there's that internal conflict. I don't know if that's the right words.
I agree.
Yeah.
I could see it.
So shield me. So how do we maintain authenticity, which is a value that a lot of our listeners have, and I'd say a lot of our society have. Everyone thinks that they're authentic in whatever way they're authentic. And how do we kind of acknowledge we run businesses, acknowledge as a business we have competitors,
Mhm.
and if we want to stay relevant and if we want to achieve our business goals, we have to blend the uncomfortableness with what we know works.
Yeah. And you know what? Like,
That was a long question.
Selling is a dirty word to a lot of people. I would say selling is a dirty word to most people. And selling and marketing go hand in hand. So I'm going to use them interchangeably, although technically they're slightly different. But I have a company full of dog trainers that do not have a professional sales background like I did. And when we were thinking about growing our business, for one, like, we want to have a thriving business, because if we have a thriving business, we get to pay people living wages. We get to keep on doing what we do. We become available for people with their dogs, just like I adopted Duke. Like, if we're here and we run lots of classes and services and we're growing, more people like Andre and Heidi in 2006 would land on a Joan Weston faster. And that's my moral imperative as to why I want the biggest company possible. The other reason is, if you aren't motivated to be successful, then the balance trainer, the compulsion trainer that bothers you so much, if they bother you, maybe you can let go of that. And I'm the type that lets go of it. But if they bother you, then Andre and Heidi of 2006 are more likely to end up at that place. And Duke would be on an e-collar or a prong collar or whatever. So that's how I've always looked at it. And when I give talks about business and strategy and tactics and stuff like that at different conferences, I have a slide about that. Like, why should we care about this? One, it's for the outcome of dogs. Two, it's to put trainers that we don't like out of business because they do things that we don't like. And the third is also, people get burned out in this business because there's a lot of emotions that come along with guiding people who are struggling with their animals. And if people are successful from a business perspective, It allows them to work a reasonable amount of hours where they get to still focus on themselves and their wellness while earning a living so they continue doing it for the long term. So I think these are all like moral imperatives for the growth and success of our business. Now, going back to the used car salesperson perspective, all the stuff I've described are not sleazy used car salesperson techniques. Used car salespeople will deliberately lie and leverage those techniques. Oh, it's the last one. We only have this car. This is the only car we have on the lot, and the next one's coming on a container from Japan in 8 months. Meanwhile, there's like four, at the terminal. Like, that's lying. It's using scarcity, which is a tactic, but lying about the scarcity. And I think that crosses the line for me. I also think that I would never position a service that if I was in their shoes, I wouldn't appreciate receiving. So we become sleazy salespeople when we push, I'm just making it up. And no offense if anyone does these services, an 8-week board and train for a happy-go-lucky pet dog. Like, if you're using techniques to guilt people into doing that, I think it's overkill. When a 6-week group class would be more than sufficient for an average happy-go-lucky dog. So those are sort of my personal boundaries about using the science of persuasion, but still sleeping well at night. And if you look at the prices on our website, like, we don't sell crazy $5,000-$10,000 board and train packages. Like, I put our puppy star rate class online for $29, and you can come to a puppy class. You can come to a puppy socialization drop-in for like $30 Canadian. Like, we have low price point things because we're not trying to fleece people for money. Because I believe that regardless of people's income, especially during difficult times, I want to make these services available. So that's another reason why I sleep well at night. Yeah, I do all the influence marketing stuff, and we do it really effectively, but we're not about selling things that people don't need, and we're not about making abnormal, unfair levels of profit. We're just trying to pay people a living wage, and keep going.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all that. And I don't think you thought this, but please know that I wasn't saying that you use lazy techniques. If you are listening to Animal Training Academy and you've seen our ads on Facebook and you've become part of our membership, these, full transparency, I'm aware of these ideas, and I've leveraged them to still be sitting here running Animal Training Academy, having the impact that we do on the human and animal learners that we do in 2024 due to my ongoing understanding and skill development of those as a business owner. But as Andre mentioned earlier, I do have paid help to assist with that as well. And am so happy to have passed decision making and marketing planning over to someone else. God, that feels good. But I want to come back to that. But what I'm taking away from what you're just sharing, Andre, and to put it in another way for the listeners of this show, it's taking the things that we do that we have to do to run a business and just reframing them. So I reframe it as our clients have a problem. Well, let's talk about you, the listener. Your clients have a problem. You are an authority, and I use that word to say that you understand and you have the skills and knowledge to help them, even though you have imposter syndrome like me. And you can solve their problem, and you're going to tell them how. Part of that is they need to do a transaction with you. And you're not selling, you're solving their problem. And to continue solving problems and having the big impact that you, the listener, want to have in this world, which we know you want to have, we know you want to help as many animals and humans as you can, you need to solve problems. And you need people to pay you to do that. That's just how you solve the problem. That's how I've reframed it, which I think is what I've taken away from what you're sharing, Andre. It's reframing how you think of these words. So, for example, let's test my hypothesis that is what I think you're saying. When I talk about authorities, like I would say, Animal Training Academy is an authority. Like, we understand the problems we're talking about on this episode today. We have Andre in our community. We have lots of other people in our community. We have this collected pool of knowledge that has been through your struggles and has felt the stress and the overwhelm and has implemented strategies and has come out the other side successful, what we might call successful. That's what I mean when I say authority. Like, how would you? I'm going to answer my own question. I need to stop talking and let Andre talk more. Everyone, Andre, um, how would you define authority in what I just talked in, and how does this idea that I put to you that what we're doing is reframing these ideas resonate with you, and what does it make you think about?
How does one define themselves as an authority? That's tricky because, especially as a dog trainer, it's an unregulated industry. But my view is I wrote a blog post a long time ago called If Not You, Then Who? And it's about imposter syndrome specifically because so many really talented trainers that I know would be reluctant to take aggression issues or leash reactivity or whatever, resource guarding, issues that they felt were beyond their pay grade. And what ends up happening in a market is the people that know the most are the ones that, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. They are aware of their own limitations. They know how deep the well goes in terms of knowledge. So what ends up happening is all these aggression cases go to people that says, I'll take it, I can solve any problem. And they're often the least qualified. So my view regarding looking at yourself as an authority is there's really no harm in trying. There's really no harm in having that first conversation and that first consult. And I've told my staff that over the years, and I've told myself that over the years, that if I ever found myself in a situation where I was over my head and I could not add value, I would have the confidence to tell the client exactly that. I'm at a loss for what to do here. This is beyond. I need to go away and do research and get back to you on this. And sometimes that might include a referral. The benefit of having a large team is sometimes that's our less senior trainers being able to have a huddle with our team collectively where we actually go through a case together. But you do that, you try anyways, go see that client. If not you, then who? It's going to be the compulsion trainer that watched all 10 seasons of Dog Whisperer and think they know everything. Better you go in there, find out that it's a little bit beyond your pay grade, tell them that honestly. And if you feel bad, give them their money back. It's a learning experience for you. You don't have to feel like you sold them a bill of goods. And then you can, through networking and referring or reaching out to communities like the Community and Animal Training Academy, find someone or find help to then go back in and do good by the client. So I think that for the most part, in the spaces that we work in, as long as we are cautious about actual physical safety and emotional safety, there's no harm in having that first conversation with anyone. So I encourage the people that are listening here to just try, because if not you, then who? And we know the answer.
So, Andre, reflecting on my own, I'm interested to hear your thoughts here and for you to share your insights with our audience. Reflecting on my own journey and thinking about some of the conversations I've had with our community recently, with individual community members. They've subscribed to Dogwise, so they're well into the training nerd arena, and they want to make that leap. They're bravely gambling and trying their hand at entrepreneurship. They are in the process of just trying things and learning. And you mentioned right at the start, hiring someone.
Mm-hmm.
So multiple questions. How do you, if you're there, or if you've just been running your brick and mortar business and the context has changed, the world has changed, the online space has changed. And it definitely has over the 8-9 years Animal Training Academy has been running significantly different online space. How do you figure out what to do? That's one question. How do you figure out what to do? And two, how do you hire someone? Because I could Google marketing companies, which I've done, everyone. Speak to 10 people, which I've done, everyone. And, I'm glad I didn't end up working with those 10 people. We've found the person but it's taken us a long time, and we've gone through 3 or 4 people to find the person that works for us. So, what kind of mindset do you need to figure out what to do and to kind of bravely hire some people? and take that leap as well?
It's going to be experimentation. I mean, as you said, but once you figured out what your strategy is, meaning, all right, these are the people that I want to approach, or these are the people that I want to attract and have as clients. These are the services I'm going to provide, and these services I am uniquely qualified to deliver better than pretty much anyone else out there. You found your zone of genius and you're going to go deep on that. Now you at least have something to start building a profile for. So, all right, I'm going to, if it's online, let's say that I'm going to focus on building the best ever pet guardian oriented reactivity online course and community. And there are a number out there that are doing well. I'm going to go in on there because I'm uniquely qualified for a bunch of different reasons. I think now that you know what your strategy is, that allows you to start looking for people to shortlist, to have conversations with, to help you. When you're just starting, though, budget will be a constraint because some of these people can be very, very expensive. And I do believe that this is my philosophy regarding business. I don't believe in raising a ton of money or if it's personal, getting into a ton of debt and gambling your sanity away. So I think you have to set a reasonable budget for your spend. And if it means that your first version is very Mickey Mouse and very small, so be it. But once you've set your budget, look at what's available because that will reduce what's out there for you. And it may mean that you end up having to work with people that are newer or possibly can do like a contra deal for services. And when you spend small, you generally do make small, and that's okay. But the end goal is to try to get to a positive return on your investment as fast as possible. So if your budget was $1,000 for this online thing and it got you something very, very small, which might just be a Facebook group and some YouTube videos that are unlisted, like that's super Mickey Mouse, so be it. But from that $1,000 spend, can you make back $1,001 in gross profit? And if the answer is yes, you've found something that works, which allows you to then double down on that. Spend $2,000 to make back $2,002. If you can find something where spending $10 makes you 11, you should basically do that forever. And just go by what you can afford because it's going to be a lot of experimentation. And that's what marketing ultimately is. You will spend money doing experiments that fail, but every failure it gets you one step closer to success. So don't blow all your chips on the first vendor you hire or the first strategy you try. That's my general advice regarding how to hire. You're going to have to hire and fire, or you're going to have to make mistakes.
And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Andre. I will jump in the deep end of the swimming pool and I'll just splash around until I do something that resembles swimming. So when my business mentor said hire someone, I just hired the first person that came along because knowing what I was doing, knowing that part of that decision was because of the excitement of, hey, I'm going to be hiring someone. This is cool. Hey, I got employees, I'm important. And also just with the mindset that regardless of what happens here, I can now say that I've hired someone. But before that, I couldn't say that. So I now have more information and experience to make good decisions in the future. I kind of feel that I am not like most people, though. I make decisions so quickly because I want to learn.
Right.
Like, what is your approach, and what have you found when teaching others about this stuff is the most helpful thing for the most amount of people in terms of how to navigate? You need to learn. I mean, we can do marketing courses until we die, right? But we need to actually make a decision at some point,
right,
to push into.
Learning about marketing is basically going to the casino. And I'm stealing that analogy. And this is another book that your community can look up after. Stealing that quote from Alex Hormozy, who's the author of 2 books. One is called $100 Million Offers, and the other one's called $100 Million Leads. And as he relates his story about how he scales up his business, he does it mainly through online advertising, so paid advertising. And the percentage is not important, but if he'll run 9 ads that lose money until he lands on one that does. And when he does, that ad ends up producing profits that make up the fact that he lost the 9 previous times. So you have to go into that mindset about marketing, that it is constant experimentation, testing, tweaking, failing, and trying again over and over again, which is why I go back to like set your budget, because if you blow all your money on the first experiment, meaning the first firm you hire and the first thing you do, then you have no money left over to try it the second time or the third time or the fourth time or the fifth time or the sixth time until you find the winner. So naturally, like if you can do it in a way that doesn't, like that's where the allure of learning about how to do it yourself like comes into play, where it's like, well, if I learn how to do it myself, then the labor cost for every experiment goes down. I can do it longer. But then it boils down to like you operating in your zone of genius. Like I like this kind of stuff. Like you can hear me get excited talking about like A/B testing, which is like testing 2 versions of an ad and see which ad outperforms. And then when you found your winner, you move on to version B and then you repeat that process. Literally like using, it's like Darwinianism for advertising, basically, to like the perfect ad is like created through trial and error or through natural selection. Like I get very excited about that. So it's fine for someone like me to spend time in here and get nerdy about it, but I still have people that help me. But if this stuff makes your eyes roll, you are not operating in your zone of genius. So don't worry about learning the nitty gritty. Find people who can and get excited about it, and then focus on what you do best. And maybe that is doing more behavior consults. Maybe that is speaking at conferences, and just make sure that you have in your operating budget the ability to keep on doing these marketing experiments. Because I'm just letting you know, like Alex Hormozy in $100 million lead says, your first 9 are going to lose money. It's the 10th that's going to pay off and make up the 9 losses. It's like going to the casino, and that you need to have that budget be sustainable for the long term.
I'm not personally a fan of casinos, but I do like uh, talking about this stuff as well. But like you, I get excited about it, but also have help doing it, and don't actually do any of it myself. I think one more thing. I think that it's for the listener of this show sounding easy. Hearing us talk, they're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds easy. I can do that." But I just want to get your thoughts. Like, this isn't easy, is it? It's what we're talking about. This is not, speaking from my experience running Animal Training Academy, it's not easy. It's blood, sweat, and tears.
It's not easy to grow a business through advertising and marketing. And the online space, whether it's an online community or online ads, is increasingly getting crowded. So it is not easy, which is why marketing experts who are really talented are worth their money, because it takes them a long time to develop the experience and knowledge and insight to do it well. I mean, but that's the same reason why we like the analogy is true for animal training. Oh, I could just hire Joe down the street who's owned dogs for 20 years. He's going to come train my dog, versus a certified dog behavior consultant who has a master's degree in, in ethology, costing $200 an hour. Well, there's a reason why. And the same is true for marketing as well. But some tips for ways to reduce your marketing costs, and also a bit of a plug if you're okay for it. Like there are ways, and it's not for me, it's for someone. There are marketing organizations that specifically focus on animal training, and because they niche down and they build a lot of products or apps that automate a lot of the work, that can help reduce the cost. So 2 that I'm thinking of is DigiWoof. DigiWoof has a marketing suite it's primarily dog trainers, but it does a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. Like it helps automate some of the social media posting. It automates some of the Google review handling. It automates some client follow-ups and mass emails. It is a marketing, like they've turned marketing as a function or a series of tasks into a product, which then makes it more affordable. And then the other person that I want to shout out is Tiffany Chen. She's known as Paw Assistant. And She is a social media consultant that niches for positive reinforcement based dog trainers. And because they've niched down and they've productized some of their services, it does bring the price point lower. So if I draw back to my experience in technology, building custom software costs a fortune, but buying software that's pre-made is affordable. Or in the case of these days, subscribing to software like as a service, like cloud apps, is affordable. So that's why I think that where possible, try to look for consultants or service providers that have productized a lot of the work so that you're not paying someone to rebuild, a car from scratch, rather leverage one that they already have ready for you to use.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for those recommendations. And I'm excited for you, the listener, if they're going to be helpful for you to go and explore those spaces, those people, and to get help with some of the stuff we've been talking about today. Well, Andre, thank you so much for sharing everything with us. Sadly, this does bring us to our final question for this double episode. And I'm really interested to hear your perspective, Andre, considering your unique entrance into our industry, your unique background, and everything you've shared with us on these last two episodes. Can you take the listeners into the future and share with us what you would like to see happen over the next 5 to 10 years in our animal training, positive reinforcement animal training community?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe I'll start with technology and that aspect of it first. I would like to see more positive reinforcement trainers on YouTube. That's just for selfish reasons. I'm just really disheartened by the fact that when you go on YouTube and type in dog leash training, you are 90% likely to click on, if you just look at the thumbnails that come up and click on one, 9 times out of 10, you will see methods that involve compulsion. Like, that's totally unacceptable in 2024. So that is actually one of the things that I am inchworming back into. I had some viral videos back in 2012 on YouTube, and I decided to just stop doing YouTube and focus on local brick and mortar marketing. But I am going to make a concerted effort to do my best to go back in. And I'd like to see my peers, my industry colleagues, get in there as well to compete against the slip leads and the keeler U-turns that are all over YouTube. I think that in terms of what we all need to do as well is get more efficient at using hybrid delivery models if you're in the brick and mortar business. And that's another thing that When Hounds Fly is focusing on. And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to lower the cost of service for our people so that more people can afford our services but still get excellent results. And my team often lamented over the years that, that first private lesson that we do for that person with leash reactivity, I end up saying the exact same thing to everybody. We talk about threshold, distance, principles of desensitization, counter conditioning, talk about all these things. And there's really no reason for someone to pay me to come in person at my hourly rate to deliver that. So let's all focus on hybrid delivery and try to deliver one-to-many services through online communities, online courses, and then save the one-to-one stuff where it's really, 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 truly needed. So I'm really happy to see, for example, Milena DiMartini has Mission Possible, which is a self-guided online course for separation anxiety. Because let's face it, not everyone can afford certified separation anxiety trainer consulting rates for weeks and months. So there's a one-to-many offering that is out there, and it's wonderful. Going back to in general, as opposed to technology and marketing and stuff like that, I would like to see our community go back to focusing on results and not making results a dirty word, because it is associated with compulsion trainers, results at any cost, whatever it takes to get the job done. And that's when people dip into aversive training. But if we don't prioritize results, our clients, our human clients, don't get the reinforcement they need to feel like their money that they spent with you was worth it. And they don't get the reinforcement to continue putting the work in that we've assigned them to do unless they see some modicum or some amount, some like glimmer of a result. So let's make results equally important when dealing with primarily pet dog owners, in addition to the methods and our humane approach to training.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. Shout out to Melina, who's awesome in general, but awesome for the reasons that you said she was awesome as well. Shout out to our listeners who have YouTube channels and putting in the grind. There was a great friend of mine and trainer called Jose Gomes, who's got a YouTube channel called Train Me Please, and he put a video up transparently showing how much he earns from the amount of energy he puts into that, and it wasn't very big. And so we appreciate the time and energy and effort that those who are putting their resources into mediums like YouTube are doing. And then obviously, what do you say about that, Andre? Because I guess when you blow up your YouTube channel, and I don't have a blown up YouTube channel, so this is not speaking from a place of authority. This is just an assumption that I'm making. You have to get the results that you want, get people's attention, and then kind of shift your focus towards a lot of trying to get attention,
entertainment, sure.
entertainment. And if you're not very good at that, or you like that, you find it aversive for whatever reason, there's a lot of resources that have to go into. Once again, not an authority, so you can challenge the assumption I'm making here. I welcome that. There's a lot of resources that have to go into YouTube or whatever platform you choose. Like,
sure.
Like we're inviting people to take on that challenge. How do people? What kind of mindset do we need to push through that marathon rather than that sprint?
Yeah. I think it's experimentation. So 9 out of 10 videos will fail miserably, but one may pop. So keep on trying. Make sure that your time and money that you spend on it is sustainable, knowing that the first 9 are going to fail. So don't go buy the $10,000 4K camera and like order $6,000 worth of lights and set up your studio, because you won't get the return on investment. You can start cheap and simple from your iPhone or your Android in my case, and build from there. The videos that I made that went viral back in 2012, I shot with a camcorder, because there weren't it was a camcorder anyways. And it was like a $200 lighting kit, like very basic. So they don't have to be a high production value, even in 2024, if the content is good and the messaging is right. Going back to the basics, like, are you adding scarcity? Are you solving a problem? Is there intrigue? Like, these are all the basics that don't rely on fancy production values. And lastly, I don't think you have to get as big as Zach George to actually make and build a YouTube channel that makes a living. Like, Zach George makes a living with sponsorship in YouTube, and that's amazing. I feel like you can have a modest size YouTube channel that generates leads for your actual services, which might be one-on-one consulting or classes. And in that case, your goal is not to become Zach George. Your goal is just to have enough presence that it serves as a lead generation for your actual business. And that's much more reasonable to aspire to.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that point up. I like it. Looking at the time, let's wrap up here. Let's wrap up with gratitude to you, Andre, for hanging out with us at Animal Training Academy. Can you just remind everyone listening where they can go to find out more about you online, about what you're up to, and get in touch?
Sure. So as this conversation was more about me and us talking about like business and marketing and where the industry is going, my pet dog training business you can find on social media very easily as @WhenHoundsFly on all major social media networks. But if you want to learn about me as an individual, because as an individual entrepreneur, then you can find me on social media, most social medias @Andre_YEU. So Instagram, you can friend me on Facebook. And LinkedIn too.
Awesome. Well, we will, of course, link to all of this in the show notes. This has been a ton of fun. Thank you, the listener, for hanging out with us. From the listener and from myself, Andre, again, much appreciation for your time today and sharing your insights with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and I hope that people enjoy our conversation.
And thank you as well so much for listening. This is your host, Ryan Cartledge, signing off from this episode of the Animal Training Academy podcast show. It's our hope today's conversation sparked inspiration and added some tools to your trainer's toolbox. Remember, every training challenge is an approximation towards becoming a better trainer. Embrace the rough patches, learn from them, and keep improving. And don't forget, the path to growing your skills and expanding your knowledge continues beyond this episode. Visit www.atamember.com to join our waitlist and be the first to know when our membership doors open again. There you'll find a supportive community of trainers just like you, working to make a positive difference in the lives of animals and humans alike. Until next time, keep honing your skills, stay resilient, and remember, every interaction with an animal or human learner is your opportunity to create ripples. We're here cheering you on every step of the way. See you at the next episode.